It all started like any ordinary morning at the airport: crowded terminals, rolling suitcases, and the steady hum of announcements echoing through the halls. Among the travelers was a young black girl named Maya, only 19, flying solo for the first time. Excited, a little nervous, and holding onto her passport like a golden ticket, she approached the check-in counter, ready for the adventure ahead. But what was supposed to be a routine moment turned into something no one expected. Standing behind the counter was a flight attendant with a stern look and a dismissive attitude. From the moment Maya handed over her passport, something felt off. The attendant barely looked at her, flipped through the pages with a scowl, and then, out of nowhere, ripped the passport right in half. Gasps filled the area. Maya froze, completely stunned. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Why did you do that?" But the woman just shrugged, brushing her off like it didn't matter. People nearby began to notice. A few pulled out their phones. Whispers turned into murmurs, and tension hung in the air like a thick fog. No one could believe what had just happened, but what came next would leave the entire terminal speechless. Because what the flight attendant didn't know, what she should have known, is that someone was watching. And that someone wasn't just any traveler. Within minutes, airport security was called. A manager stormed down the terminal with purpose in his stride. And let's just say, what he did next changed everything. So how did a single act of cruelty lead to a moment of instant justice? And why was Maya's passport really torn? Stay with us, because what happened next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about power, prejudice, and standing up for what's right. The manager's footsteps echoed louder with every step as he approached the scene. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd, which had now gathered around Maya, phones still recording, faces frozen in disbelief. Maya stood still, clutching the torn pieces of her passport, her hands shaking. She wasn't loud. She didn't argue. But the hurt in her eyes said it all. She had done nothing wrong, just followed the rules, just wanted to board her flight like everyone else. The flight attendant, whose badge read Cheryl, looked annoyed more than anything else. She crossed her arms and rolled her eyes as the manager arrived. "It was a fake," she muttered, not even meeting his gaze. "I was doing my job." But the manager didn't respond right away. He reached down, gently taking the torn passport from Maya, examining it closely. His expression changed almost instantly, calm but tense. Something wasn't adding up. What Cheryl didn't realize was that Maya's passport had already been scanned and verified moments earlier by another agent. Everything had checked out. There was no reason to question its validity. So why had Cheryl targeted her? Was it a mistake, or something else? As whispers continued around them, Maya's voice finally broke the silence. "Why did you only treat me like that?" It wasn't a shout, just a quiet, painful question that seemed to hit harder than anything else. People around nodded, some even speaking up, saying they'd seen other passengers go through without trouble. The energy in the air was thick. This wasn't just about a document anymore. It was about dignity, respect, and how easy it is for someone's power to be used the wrong way. And just when it felt like the truth was about to be revealed, a voice came from behind the crowd. Someone with evidence that would change everything. From the back of the crowd, a woman stepped forward, holding up her phone. She looked nervous but determined. "I got the whole thing on video," she said, locking eyes with the manager. She didn't even check the passport properly, just snatched it and tore it like she was waiting for a reason. The tension sharpened. Cheryl shifted uncomfortably, her confidence beginning to crack. The manager motioned for the woman to play the footage. As the video rolled, the crowd grew silent. The clip clearly showed Maya approaching with a smile, offering her passport politely. Cheryl barely looked at it, said a few cold words, and then ripped it straight down the middle. There was no attempt to scan it again, no questions asked, just a sudden, aggressive act that made no sense. Whispers started again. A man standing nearby said, "She let the guy before her through without even asking for ID." Another woman added, "That's the same attendant who snapped at my daughter last week. We thought she was just rude, but now..." The manager's jaw tightened. He was seeing a pattern, and so was everyone else. What began as one shocking moment was now growing into something bigger. This wasn't just about Maya anymore. It was about how many others may have been silently mistreated, overlooked, or judged without cause. Cheryl, who now looked visibly uncomfortable, spoke up again. "People make mistakes," she said defensively. "Why is everyone turning this into something it's not?" But that excuse didn't sit right. Not with Maya, not with the crowd, and not with the quiet employee standing off to the side, an older flight attendant who had worked with Cheryl for years. She hadn't said a word yet, but the look on her face said she knew something that could turn this entire situation upside down. The older flight attendant finally stepped forward. Her name tag read Linda, and her hands were clenched tight at her sides. For a moment, it looked like she wasn't sure if she should speak. But then, with a deep breath, she turned to the manager. "This isn't the first time," she said quietly. "I've seen Cheryl single out passengers like this before. It's always the ones who look different. Young girls, people of color, families who don't speak much English." Her voice shook, but the truth in her words hit hard. The crowd shifted, some people visibly upset, others whispering among themselves. Maya stood still, her torn passport still in hand, trying to process what she was hearing. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of questions. How long had this been happening? How many people like her had gone through this and just walked away in silence? The manager's phone buzzed, and he stepped aside to take a call. Meanwhile, airport security arrived, moving through the crowd with quiet authority. They didn't come in aggressively, but their presence made it clear. This was serious now. One of the officers gently asked Cheryl to step aside. Her expression hardened, but she obeyed, though not without throwing a sharp look back at Maya. Inside the crowd, tension thickened. A reporter who happened to be nearby started asking questions. Another passenger said they remembered Cheryl from a similar situation months ago, when a young couple was pulled from a flight over a suspicious document. That incident was quietly dismissed. But now, with witnesses, video evidence, and an insider speaking up, the story was no longer just between Maya and Cheryl. As eyes turned to the manager returning from his call, the air around him felt heavy. He looked at Maya, then at Cheryl, then at the security team. Whatever he had just heard on that call, it was going to change everything. The manager's face was pale as he lowered his phone. Whatever he had just heard clearly shook him. He stepped closer to Maya, his voice steady but low. "I just spoke with the airline's legal department," he said. "They confirmed your passport was valid. Not only that, you were flagged for priority clearance. You were selected for a scholarship travel program. Your name is on a list of sponsored travelers for a global youth summit." Gasps spread through the crowd again. Maya's eyes widened. She hadn't told anyone around her why she was flying. It wasn't just a trip. This flight was her dream. Months of work, interviews, paperwork. It was her shot to represent her community, her country. And now it all made sense why the airline had upgraded her ticket and sent her a special check-in notice. Cheryl had destroyed something far more important than a travel document. She had tried to crush an opportunity. Before anyone could react, Linda, the older flight attendant, spoke up again, this time more urgently. "There's something else," she said, eyes locked on the manager. "Last month, a traveler reported Cheryl for doing the same thing, but the report disappeared. I heard from someone in the office that it got handled quietly because Cheryl's connected to someone in corporate." The crowd fell into a stunned silence. The situation was no longer just about bad behavior. It was about a system that had been protecting it. Suddenly, another woman stepped forward, this time in a business suit with a badge clipped to her blazer. "I'm with the airline's ethics and compliance team," she announced. "We've been reviewing complaints tied to this terminal for weeks, and based on what I just witnessed, this is no longer an internal issue. This is going public." Now, with corporate watching, legal involved, and Maya's story bigger than ever. The truth was finally being forced into the light. But what would happen next? No one was prepared for. The moment felt frozen in time. The compliance officer's words hit like thunder. Asterisk, this is going public asterisk. Cameras were still rolling. Witnesses stood shoulder to shoulder. And Cheryl, who had started the day with full control behind her check-in desk, was now visibly shaken. Her voice trembled as she tried to defend herself. I didn't know who she was. I thought the passport was fake. I was just being careful. But it was too late for excuses. The facts were clear. The manager turned toward her, firm now. You weren't careful. You were careless. And now, you've not only embarrassed the airline, you've hurt someone who trusted us. He nodded to security. Cheryl didn't argue anymore. She quietly stepped aside as they escorted her away, not in handcuffs, but with the eyes of everyone on her. For the first time, there were consequences. Maya stood quietly as the compliance officer walked over and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. We're replacing your passport immediately, and your flight is rebooked with a full upgrade. You'll make it to the summit, and we'll be issuing a formal apology. The crowd around her erupted in soft applause, some people even cheering. A few strangers offered words of support, small gestures, but they meant everything in that moment. Just as it seemed the story was over, the twist came. The officer leaned in and said, Maya, there's something else. That travel scholarship you won, it wasn't random. Someone nominated you. Maya blinked, confused. Who? She asked. The woman smiled and pointed to Linda, the older flight attendant now standing quietly in the background. She submitted your name. She saw your community work online and believed you deserved to be seen. Maya turned stunned. Linda gave a quiet nod, her eyes full of warmth. In the end, it wasn't just justice that rose from that broken passport. It was something deeper, proof that even in a system that sometimes fails, there are still people watching, standing up, and believing in someone else's worth.